Well, Bob, we're seeing people from both sides of the aisle calling on the president to back down. We're seeing business leaders, from a pro-business president, we're seeing business leaders come out and openly disagree with what happened on Friday. What are your thoughts on this executive order and whether it has teeth? I mean, obviously it caused disruption.
Well, it's certainly very disruptive. The irony is it was meant to improve the security and the safety of Americans. I don't think it will do that. One of the things you learn from police chiefs in New York and elsewhere is cooperation with the Muslim community in this country is very important to identifying security threats from the Muslim community or elsewhere. Second, we need to work with, for instance, Iraq, a lot of people, translators and others, and we've turned our back on them in this order. It's been very disruptive to a lot of people who've relied on the United States. Third, we want to develop a stronger coalition with Muslims in the Arab world and elsewhere. This, in a way, works exactly against that goal. So it doesn't really strengthen national security, it weakens it. And also American principles, American values are a very important part of American strength in the world, or the thing that enables other countries to look at the United States and emulate the United States and support the United States. If we compromise our values, which this does in a variety of ways, the Statue of Liberty is sort of the icon of American values, these kinds of things really undermine our credibility amongst other democracies and throughout the world.
So there have been a lot of pleas to the emotions of people and so forth, and a lot of references to the Statue of Liberty and to various speeches that previous presidents have given, and there's no doubt that it was an extraordinarily disruptive action to have taken on a Friday afternoon at 5:30. But what's more perhaps surprising is how little the agencies that were supposed to carry it out knew about it before and as it was happening. Have you ever been in a situation where a country was so unprepared for an action?
No, and I think that is really one of the problems. Had they consulted Homeland Security, the State Department, the Defense Department, the Justice Department in a thorough way, had they vetted it with the experts there, they would have learned that our immigration laws are very complicated. They had no clear idea of whether it applied to green card holders, of how it applied or whether it applied to dual citizens. We have large numbers of dual citizens in this country. How it applied to all those people in Iraq and elsewhere who'd helped American troops. There was so little, if any, vetting with the people who have the expertise in this area. And then when the president announced it, he said, well, things are going nicely. Well, at that point, there were numerous people who were held up. The people, he also said, who needed to know were told. Well, clearly that wasn't the case, because the people who were there trying to make decisions as to whether who could come in had no idea, no guidance at all. So this is really a troublesome thing.
He has always said on foreign policy, they won't know. They being a big catch-all umbrella term for whoever it is out there that we might be taking an action against. Was this part of that? Was this Donald Trump deciding to take his first sort of presidential step that would blindside some countries that may be aggressors?
Well, the irony is that they were already told in the campaign by Trump himself as a candidate that he was going to restrict the inflow of Muslims. He was going to have extreme vetting. So this was signaled in advance. The notion they had to do it very quickly to avoid people coming in before the deadline really is an odd thing to say when they were told in advance by him specifically he was going to do these kinds of things. And I don't think that it was well understood by anyone who was actually writing this, what the implications of this were going to be. If they'd taken more time to think it through and get the input of experts in the government, and there are many experts. I worked on this, I was in the Middle East, I know a lot about this, but many, many people who are there now know a lot about it. They could have been consulted, and a lot of these problems, particularly the very painful humanitarian impact on a lot of people being sent back would have been avoided.
What do you make of the choice of countries and the choice of countries that are not on the list? So, it's not just the current administration that is picking, if you like, on these countries. It's been not just one, but two previous administrations, so Democrat and Republican. There's no political bias here, or is there?
Well, I think the difference is that he referred to, or his spokesman referred to, the Obama administration coming up with these countries, the list of 7. But they were identified as countries where there was terrorism going on. There was never a utilization of that definition, of that characterization, to make the kind of sweeping restrictions on immigration that have been made in this policy that the president has just announced. And I think they really need, when they're making complicated decisions, first of all, take their time and not rush it. Second, get the experts who are in the government who can give them some sense of the impact of this and really have a feel for the details of American policy. And so before they change it, they really need to understand it, understand all the implications.
The idea that this can be done, so yes, it created chaos, but nevertheless, it stopped people from getting into the country and leaving the country. It really did, you know, present, if you like, what I'm sure the president saw as strength. Mm-hmm. Is that what you think our allies and non-allies abroad think of it as, strength or weakness?
I think the president has obviously indicated his strong desire to be tougher in terms of vetting people who are coming in. That's something that he has legal authority in numerous areas to take action to do, to strengthen our immigration policies. But the key is, how do you do this? Does it look strong to come up with a policy that is so confusing, where so few people seem to understand the implications of the policy? Even the chief of staff of the White House didn't quite know whether it applied to green card holders or didn't. This, if he wants to present strength, he also has to demonstrate some degree of capability to put forward a policy that is understandable, where the rationale is clear, that people can implement it in an effective way. Putting a policy forward that is not understood and is confusing and is not implemented really doesn't project strength. He can do a number of things, but he has to do them in a more effective way and a way that clarifies rather than confuses the whole process.